Okay, once again, good evening, everybody. The first item on the agenda is apologies for absence.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I have apologies from Mike Day, Ryland Doyle, Erica Kirshner, Nicola Matthews, James McKettrick and Andrew Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. The next item is disclosures of personal and prejudicial interest. Oh, sorry, Mary, sorry. Graham Thomas.
And from David Phillips, please.
Yeah, and Councillor Bridget Rowlands.
She's asking a question.
Oh, Councillor O'Brien, did you want to ask anything, please?
Yeah, thank you. And Councillor Richard Lewis as well. He's stuck in a meeting, so apologies from him.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's it. Okay, we go move on to the disclosures of personal and prejudicial interest. I'll hand you over to Ms. Mathias. Mrs. Mathias, going to be doing now. We're ready. Sorry.
Thank you, Presiding Member. The only item that I wish to bring to your attention tonight is agenda item 8, which is the pay policy statement for 2023 to 24. My advice is the same as when you previously considered the pay policy statement, and councillors who have a close personal association or have family members who work for the authority should declare a personal interest under paragraph 10(2)(c) of the code. And I'll take a block declaration in relation to that personal interest. Officers who are present will also need to declare both a personal and prejudicial interest and leave the remote meeting or the chamber. Adrian Chard is online and will remain to answer any technical questions that you may have, and the Dome Services Officer will also remain to take the minutes. Chief officers will also be declaring an interest in relation to agenda item 9, and I myself will be declaring an interest in relation to agenda items 8, 9 and 10. So I'll take a block declaration in relation to agenda item 8, the pay policy statement for councillors. That will be a personal interest only under paragraph 10(2)(c) of the code. If you have a close personal associate or a family member who is employed by the local authority. And please remember to fill out the forms. Thank you. We're just making a note of that, and those online that have raised their hands as well. Okay, thank you. And also can officers who may be attending remotely or be in the chamber also raise their hands for declaration of personal and prejudicial interest in relation to items 8 and 9 if they are chief officers. Okay, and I'm declaring an interest in agenda item 10. Yeah. Okay. Are there any other interests to declare?
Yeah, I've got a personal prejudicial interest in 12, I think 2, which is the question about hard to reach learners, and no withdraw for that one.
Okay, is that everybody? Okay, thank you. The next item is to approve the minutes, and that's on pages 1 through to 14. I'll go through them first. So it's page 1, page 2, page 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. Okay. Thank you. The next is the written responses to questions asked at the last ordinary meeting of council, and that's on pages 15 and 16. And then we have my announcements. So the first one is to welcome Councillor Myra Baker to the chamber. On your first council meeting, Councillor Baker was elected following the Penderry by-election held on the 28th of April 2023. So congratulations and welcome. Thank you. The next is, I think it's Dewar Shield. The Welsh Schools Dewar Shield competition is the oldest school competition in world rugby. and I'm delighted to congratulate Swansea Schools on recently winning the prestigious award Shield for the 9th time with a 24-22 victory over Pontypridd Schools in the finals at the Principality Stadium. Okay, so well done to everybody. Okay, and can I just remind all members of the public that, I don't know where you got public, yes we are, public, that the meeting is being broadcast live and care must be taken to avoid any abusive or defamatory comments against officers, councillors or any other members of the public. And the other thing, can I please remind you all to remain seated when speaking in the council chamber, as this makes it easier for people to hear and to see you. The next item is an amendment, and it's an amendment agenda order. It's item 9. The Chief Officer Job Evaluation Scheme will be considered prior to item 8, Pay Policy Statement 23-24. Okay, and that's the end of my announcements. The next item is the announcements of the leader. Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I have no formal announcements other than to add my congratulations to yours on the the election of Councillor Myra Baker. Thank you.
Okay, the next item is the public questions, and I believe we've got 2 questions submitted. And the first question is from Dave Grant via Teams. Mr. Grant, are you with us?
I am, thank you. Yes, Councillor. This is a question regarding the ongoing affairs at Swansea Airport. The question is, as a local resident and user of the airport, could the council confirm that the mismanagement of the lease to date will be rectified with specific reference to 5 items that were present when the airport was firstly subleased to private companies? That is the runway lighting on runway 2204. At the very least, the NDB DME instrument landing equipment, the entire destruction of runway 3315, the reduction in length and width of runway 2204 through neglect, and the loss of all safety lighting, the red beacons on the tops of high points in the airport. Can the council ensure that they will enforce replacement of these items or remuneration of any public funds that were spent by the council originally?
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Is
Chair,
it you, Leader, you taking it? Leader?
I'll just make a quick statement, if I may, and then Councillor Hopkins will come in to give a further statement again. I just wanted to outline the fact that, as we've said at previous meetings, we are in a legal process at the moment. Cabinet is due to receive further legal advice in due course. And as Councillor Hopkins has said previously, it is a very difficult and frustrating position for us as members not to be able to say more than we are actually able to at this point in time, because we do not want to either undermine the position of any parties or the council itself. So therefore we have to proceed with caution at this point in time. And I just wanted to put on record that we are not trying to be evasive and address the points raised by either of the public questioners today, but we are under strict legal advice at the present time in terms of how far we can go with our answers, given the position the council currently is. So that is hopefully helpful context for both questions today, and I'll hand over now to Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, thanks, Leader, and thanks, Mr. Grant, for giving the question prior and in writing. So I do appreciate that, and don't want to repeat what the Leader has said. But what I can say, for several years, we've had comprehensive advice from officers of the council of the condition of the airport, and particularly with the dilapidation of the lease and with the condition of the original lease as well. So we have had comprehensive advice. We've also had external legal advice at every stage of this. This is an ongoing situation. It could go on a little longer, but we will resolve it as soon as we possibly can. But what I will say, your questions will be noted today, and any further reports to Cabinet will include independent legal advice prior to any decision process the Cabinet finds itself in, and all this will clearly be available for all Cabinet members when the final report comes to Cabinet. So unfortunately, as I said, it is a difficult situation we're in. It would be a little bit irresponsible of me today to go further on the lease, on the condition of the lease and the present situation we're in. But all I ask that continue to work with us and hopefully we can resolve the situation. But it isn't easy, and I'm totally dissatisfied with the situation myself. So please be patient. That's all I could say.
Thank you, Councillor Hopkins. The next question is coming from Mr. Bob Oliver, please.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I'm grateful for the opportunity again to ask a question on behalf of the Swansea Airport Stakeholders Alliance. And listening to what has just been said, I should say, for the avoidance of doubt, I want to make it absolutely clear that the Alliance is motivated solely by a genuine desire to help and support the Council to secure the best outcome for all the residents and the wider stakeholder community. So having said that, which I think accords very much with what Councillor Hopkins just said, I'm just going to refer very briefly to the answer to a councillor's question, which appears later in the agenda, where, and I quote from the answer, further legal advice and investigations, including estimates of costs for all options, are required to ensure that any cabinet decision is properly balanced, blah, blah, blah. So the Alliance presented the Council many months ago with detailed options for realising substantial public benefits from a progressive new approach to the operation of the airport site. And since its formation in 2021, we've offered to support the Council and to work with them to help secure the best outcome for residents and for the wider stakeholder community. So my question is this: will the Council, in preparing its estimates of costs and hopefully benefits, consult stakeholders?
I'd be brief. Yes, there will be further consultation at the appropriate time. If and when the appropriate time comes around, there will be further consultation on the process going forward.
Okay, thank you. One very brief supplementary, if I may, Madam Presiding Officer. We all, those who have been involved in this are well aware that the lease of the airport actually expired over 5 years ago. And we're still here and things are still going on and it still keeps getting put back and further advice, further investigation, further legal advice. Is it possible to say at this point when the Cabinet will come to consider all of this?
To be quite honest, it's quite difficult to answer that question at this particular time. All I can say that we are, at this present time, taking legal advice. That advice is taking a little longer than what I would particularly like. I'm hoping, I'm mindful that once we're able to have that advice and we are subject to bringing to a cabinet, and we probably would have to have a special cabinet, I'm guessing, the way times are going, to look at that particular issue and take that advice at the time. So all I say, be patient, and please, the only thing I can say yet again is that once that advice is available to us, we will look at all factors. And I appreciate the patience till 2021. I know that myself, RFT, Councillor RFT and the leader have met with you. And we do appreciate your support as well. Thank you.
Okay.
I believe we have one more speaker, please. Can you state your name, please, and which item you're referring to? Thank you.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. My name's Ralph Bettany. I'm a local businessman and airport user. I'm continuing with the item regarding the airport. Supplementary question really to Mr. Oliver's observations. The answer to the councillor's questions about the airport refers to estimates of cost for all options. Will the leaders say what options are being considered and whether the potential benefits of those different options will also be considered?
Could I say at this point, we'd rather remiss than me to answer that question. All I would say, once that we're in a position to answer that question, then I will be. But at the moment, I cannot give you any commitment on that at the moment.
Yes, I do understand that. One supplementary, if I may. I did ask a series of questions, written questions, at the last council meeting, and I have not heard any acknowledgement, let alone an answer to those questions. Is it possible to say when I'm likely to get an answer to those questions?
Yeah, sorry, I believe Councillor Hopkins at the last meeting gave a summary answer covering a number of questions. And because the verbal answer was given, which explained that we could not go into detail in terms of the written answers to the questions, then no written answers will follow. That's my understanding. But again, in response to yourself and Mr. Oliver and the other question of this evening, we will attempt to bring this matter to a conclusion as quickly as possible. But as I've said, given the timing of this meeting, we're not able to go further than we have previously in giving you any further information, because we now have to wait for the final legal advice and then for Cabinet to be convened in order to decide the way forward.
Thank you, Leader. I do understand that. I asked, I believe, 6 questions, one of which related specifically to the airport, which I fully understand is covered by your statement. However, the other 5 related to items in the accounts.
Apologies then. If that is the case, I will chase up why you haven't been provided with written answers to items which may not be related to the airport, because if they're not ones that are covered currently by the legal advice, then I'm sure we can arrange a response.
Thank you very much indeed.
Okay, we move on to item 8 then, please, and I'll give the officers time to leave if they need to go. That was brought forward. Sorry, it's item 9. It's the Chief Officer's job evaluation scheme. Is it over to you, Martin? Are you? Yeah, sorry. I did announce at the beginning, but I forgot I'd done it as well. Sorry.
Thank you, Presiding Member, and thank you for indulging the reordering of the agenda for reasons which will become apparent when I just go through briefly the report. Item 9 outlines the options for introduction of an updated Chief Officer job evaluation scheme. It follows on from a previous report from my predecessor Chief Executive. The Council accepted the recommendation that a new scheme was required. External consultants have been brought in to assist the Council on developing that, and section 2 to 10 of the report outline the options that are available. And then section 11 outlines the Officer's view in terms of recommending the LGA job evaluation scheme is adopted. Paragraph 11.5 just references that there's been initial consultation with the trade unions, with myself and our colleagues in HR, and I've also contacted and spoken to the employees who are impacted or potentially impacted with some initial consultation. I've received no objections to the recommendations that are set out within the report. There are some supplementary comments that have been made as part of that consultation that will be picked up through the process. I wanted to draw particular attention to section 13, which just highlights that the intention going into this is to ensure that the new scheme that's adopted is cost neutral, save for any potential short-term pay protection costs that would be applicable in any of such circumstances. And also highlight that a future report will be required back to Council to deal with the pay and grading aspect and effectively the financial implications of any subsequent decision. That's not what's being sought today. Therefore, just want to finally draw attention to the 4 recommendations and seek Council's view as to their approval, and particularly just to reference recommendation 3, that if that's accepted, there would be a further minor change required to the pay policy that you are just about to consider, hence why I've suggested that they are reordered on the agenda. Thank you, Presiding Member.
Thank you. The 4 recommendations, and they're on page 45. Shall I take them individually? Sorry,
Chair, if I could just formally move the report on behalf of the
sorry, I need a seconder as well. Thank you. Thank you.
A question really on the independent consultants detailed report in sections 2 till 10. Having read through it, the one thing that I think we need to understand is there needs to be a bit more communication with members, because this chief officer's evaluation, when it comes up, how will it be measured up? I think that's a very important issue, because without that, we as members need to have that, if you like, comfort to know that we can understand this evaluation process.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I'd be more than happy to arrange a briefing session for members as the process progresses to outline how the scheme is developing. Obviously, a further report will come back to Council, but more than happy to have a separate briefing session as prior to that being represented back to Council.
Councillor Hopkins,
Yeah, just like to formally second the report.
Councillor Black.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just looking through the consultant's report, there doesn't appear to be anything in there in terms of personal development, which I think is always a crucial part of any job valuation scheme. I mean, obviously we're talking of chief officers here, but they require training as well as others. I'm just wondering, is this process going to involve a discussion of how the individuals can be personally developed in the future?
I can respond to that. My understanding is it's always been two completely separate processes. There is a process for job evaluation, which is in line with the detail of the scheme that would be adopted if council are minded to approve it. Dealing with, in terms of performance appraisals, etc., are covered under a completely separate policy. And the advice has always been received that the two are not merged or mixed. But I can assure the Chamber that there is a robust process in place for appraisals of all chief officers.
Thank you. The recommendations, as I said, are on page 45. I'll take them individually. So the first one is to consider the recommendations of the independent consultants as detailed in sections 2 to 10. So can I have a show of hands in agreement, please? Any against? Any abstentions? Okay, that's moved. Move on to the second recommendation, and that's to agree the recommendations detailed in sections 11 to adopt the LGA job evaluation scheme for chief officers in future use. Again, can I have a show of hands for, please? Thank you. Anybody against? I don't know. I didn't know whether you wanted to, because it. Are you sure? Okay, we'll take 3 and 4 together then. So can I have a show of hands for, please? Anybody against? And any abstentions? Okay, that's moved. Thank you. Okay, we go back to item 8 then, and that's the pay policy. Mr. Chard is taking this, I believe, is it?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Support comes in my name. The support obviously come before us, I think, in the March meeting. Today we're in a situation where there are some amendments to that, and obviously with the report that come before us today, and subsequently the way that the bottom end of the scale has been totally wiped out. I formally move the report. I know that at the moment, Adrian Chard is it actually online if there are any technical questions, but the only difference is in slight amendments from the March pay policy. So I formally move.
Can I have a second? Please?
Chair, formally second.
Thank you. I'm just checking. There's nobody online got their hands up. That's all. Can I have a show of hands then, please, to support? The recommendation is on page 17, and it's to update the pay policy statement 23-24 as attached to Appendix A on the report, be approved and published. Okay. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. That's moved. So we move on to item 10, and that's the options for the appointment of the post of Director of Corporate Services. Mr. Nick, oh, sorry. Sorry, I'm too quick now for you. Sorry, Mr. Nicholas. Over to you, Mr. Nicholas. Thank you.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Just briefly, just want to outline the report set of the options for appointing to the role of Director of Corporate Services. Council will be aware that previous recruitment was a process was undertaken. Unfortunately, that process didn't result in appointing to the role that was advertised. Council, during the feedback of that, requested a further report outlining the options, and hence the report is in front of you today. The details contained within the report, it sets out 4 options, sets out the pros and cons of the options, and the single recommendation is to proceed with option 2, which is to advertise the post on a permanent and part-time basis. The rationale for that is set out in the report, and members will be aware that we've operated with a similar structure, albeit from a consultancy arrangement, for the last 11 months or so, and in my opinion, quite successfully. I'd also just want to draw members' attention to the fact that the current structure contains this post on a permanent full-time basis. The suggestion is reducing the structure by half a post, although the budget that was approved by Council in March has already reflected that assumption. So if there was a decision to progress with the full-time post, then an additional budget would need to be added in. Thank you, Presiding Member.
Did you move the report,
Chair,
please?
very happy to move the recommendations as outlined by the Chief Executive.
Okay, and a seconder?
Very happy to formally second this report. Thank you, President.
Councillor Black.
Thank you, Chair. I just got a few questions on this. I noticed from 2.1 that the original application attracted 19 applications which are described as a strong shortlist, and that none of these met the criteria. So I'm just wondering, if we were to advertise this on a part-time basis, what confidence do we have that, given that we couldn't appoint it on a full-time basis, that applicants will come forward to be able to do it on I think it's 3 days a week, as opposed to the full-time basis which you got here? The second question, obviously this post has been operating on a part-time basis for some, I think, did you say 13 months? And before that, of course, it was full-time for some considerable time. We're now being told that we can cope with it on 3 days a week as opposed to where it was previously. And so I'm just wondering, in future, when we do get vacancies in chief of at this level, are we going to immediately do an evaluation to see if we can get away with a part-time post instead of a full-time appointment? Because it seems to me we can do it with this, but surely we can do it with other posts as well.
Thank you for the question. Thank you, Presiding Member. In terms of the first question, as to the confidence of receiving a healthy group of applicants for the part-time role, it's impossible to say. In the same way, it's impossible to say if we re-advertise the role on a full-time basis, we might get additional candidates that we would be happy to shortlist. So, and that's why in the report it says that option 1 and option 2 really are credible options. But on the basis of, we believe that there is a market for people who would want to work perhaps in their latter days of their career on a part-time basis. We believe that there will be some opportunities for people to apply. The reality is, if we're unable to appoint through that process, we will bring a report back to Council and advise you as to the next steps. In terms of the second question around whether or not we'd consider future roles on a part-time basis, my view will be that if we do have vacant positions within certainly the corporate management team, I'd be looking to review the structure and, if necessary, bring any further recommendations back to Council for Council to approve, because Council would need to approve the changes to any of those structures. Sorry, was there a third question, Councillor Back?
There's only 2 questions. That was a good answer. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? No? Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and the recommendations are on page 70, and it's recommended Council notes the options set out in the report and agrees that option 2 is progressed and that the post is recruited to align with the JNC officer appointment procedure rules. So kind of a show of hands and support, please. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Okay. We got them here with this 4 abstentions. Okay. Okay, if somebody can call or trace it back. Okay, thank you. Okay, we move on to item 11 then, and that's the consultation and engagement strategy. And can I call on Councillor Stewart, please?
Yeah, thank you, Presiding Member. I won't say too much about this report because I know we had quite a debate in terms of consultation and engagement, and we rehearsed a number of the arguments at the last meeting. I think we all obviously want to ensure that we engage with our communities and those who will have views on what we do and how we deliver it. We've recently, as Cabinet and CMT, had the opportunity to have a briefing in terms of the whole spectrum of engagements, right through from consultation through to co-production, and how best to use those. And I think that would be a session perhaps really useful for members as well. I know as well that we're having discussions with the team about how we can build upon what's in this report in terms of making sure that this is a living document, and where we see opportunities to do things differently or to build upon the approach outlined, we take them. So again, nothing further to add to the report, and I'd formally move the recommendation. Happy to take questions on the report itself.
Second, then, please.
Formally second.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Lewis. I got one hand up, Councillor Fitzgerald.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I read the report with considerable interest because I do have concerns about consultations. Now, the report states the aims of the strategy, and they sound quite positive. You know, it provides the council with a framework to make sure people are listened to on decisions that affect them. It gives communities the opportunity to influence decisions that affect them, etc., etc. It also refers to the Gamming principles, and that consultation should take place at the formative stage before any decisions are taken. However, my issue is that when a community demonstrates that it is totally opposed to something that the council wants to impose upon it, then it makes no difference. The consultation, yes, but the outcome of the consultation, despite an overwhelming opposition to what is being proposed by the council, it has no effect. What the council wants goes ahead. I have concerns about this. You know, surely the point of a consultation is to take on board and act upon the wishes of the community. But this is not what happens. And I think my ward is a splendid example. You only have to look at the cycle path that is currently being constructed on Gosainen Road. Total opposition, not listened to. It goes ahead because it is what the council wants. So consultations, I'm afraid I am sceptical about, because yes, the council may listen, but it doesn't act. And as far as communities are concerned, it seems like a big waste of time and money. Perhaps the leader could comment, please.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. I think the one point I would make on this is just because you have a consultation and just because you have a loud voice doesn't mean that you should prevail. Again, it's about making sure that you have a consultation where everybody's views are treated equally and that you come to a reasoned decision at the end of it. And, you know, where we've referenced cycle paths and active travel, I know that routes across Swansea have been amended and changed as a result of the consultation that was undertaken. There will be those people who are always opposed to cycle routes, regardless of where they go or how they're implemented. Likewise, there are people who oppose housing developments and other developments in their wards, and you know, they often have multiple opportunities to make their points on that. So it's just you cannot pull down consultation because sometimes you don't like the answer at the end of the process. And I think we can reasonably demonstrate on active travel and other routes that we have engaged with communities, we have amended the schemes, and we have taken on board comments when we're delivering additional facilities for communities.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Black.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think that obviously consultation is really important, and I think Councillor Fitzgerald does have a reasonable point in relation to the timeliness of consultation. And I refer back to the previous previous council term, in regards to the males cycle path, where there was a lot of controversy about the inadequate consultation on that, because we were relying on a 2017 consultation for the whole city, as opposed to a specific consultation on that particular cycle path. So I think it's important that where we do consult, that we make sure that the consultation is timely and relevant to the particular proposal we're putting in place. I think more importantly, and this is the point I really want to make, where you have a quasi-judicial function like planning, and you consult on a planning application, all the responses are listed in the report and they are addressed in the report. And we haven't always carried that practice up to non-quasi-judicial processes, so it's not clear from the report how exactly we've taken into account the consultation or whether we've answered the points that have been made. I think it's important that in future, where we do have reports on issues which aren't quasi-judicial, going to Cabinet or to Council or to any committee, that the consultation responses are put in the report, and that we actually answer them in the report so that people can see a clear process and one which is transparent, and they can understand our reasoning if we decide that we're going to ignore a lot of those responses or not. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think, look, I mean, on the last point that Councillor Black made around making sure that people understand that we've seen their comment, that we've taken on board and that we've responded to it. I mean, we do that in consultations now. So we will sometimes bunch together similar comments and then give a response to it. So we do that. And I think it is really important that people who take the time to fill out a survey and make comments then have a response as to whether their request or comments have been taken on board. But I go back to the point. I mean, I don't want to rehearse the male cycle path scheme, but I know Councillor Mark Thomas spent many sessions in this chamber going through the misinformation that was being circulated by the person who didn't eventually get elected in that ward at the election, who was a real an individual who had placed a lot of misinformation in the community about the processes, about what had happened. And I think Councillor Thomas dealt with all of those at the time, so I won't repeat them. What I would say, though, is, you know, consultation can always be improved upon. I know I could flick back to the consultation on the closure of Daniel James School, the replacement of the slip bridge. There are a number of ones where the community have been very clear about what they wanted, but yet the administration decided to go in a different way. So, you know, it is important. And, you know, what we will continue to do is to try and build a consultation that works for everybody. But I come back to the same point. On any consultation, you're not going to please everybody, and sometimes you're not going to like the outcome.
Councillor Fitzgerald, do you want to come back in?
Yes, please. Just to say I fully endorse what Councillor Black has said. And I would point out that the 2017 consultation was what occurred across the whole of Swansea. And when I did inquire about information in my particular ward about the cycle routes, I was told it was the 2017 consultation, and following a freedom of information, I was not informed about this, neither was the Community Council, and obviously neither were any residents. So I would suggest in this instance, there was a failure in the way the consultation was conducted. And I just hope that in the future, things will operate in a better and more effective way. Thank you, Chair.
Leader.
That may be Councillor Fitzgerald's recollection, but that is not my understanding from the discussions we've had with officers. Councillor Stevens unfortunately couldn't be with us this evening, otherwise I'm sure he would intervene. But what I will commit to doing is to go and checking those facts. I know we did consult on the broader network that the cycle routes would create, but my understanding is we've also consulted on every bit of the network with the localities around the actual routes, the actual design of it, as the more detailed schemes become available. But I will go back and check that, and if that information can be provided, I will share it with Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, presiding member. Regardless of what outcome a consultation produces, I want to really focus on how we get people to engage with consultations. I think a good example of engagement is when the council do their annual consultation for the budget. Unfortunately, you know, it's done through a variety of media, and there's a really good effort made for people to come to the table. Unfortunately, not many people do in fact come to the table. So the first question of a couple I've got here is there really a minimum threshold of engagement to prove that a consultation has in fact been effective, regardless of what people's views on it are, or are we merely ticking a box that we've consulted and hey ho, off we go? The second point is I'll give an example of a bad method of consultation, and dare I say, I don't want to cause controversy either way, because as you know, try to be a nice human being. But that's on the Uplands cycle path. Now, okay, so the very early stage, but the timings of the consultations were between 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock on 2 occasions, and a lot of people couldn't in fact engage with the process despite protestations from the ward members. So the company tasked with doing a consultation didn't really have the full benefit of people's views being engaged either for or against the project. So I would say that was a bad example of consultation. They did attempt to engage local traders in a separate exercise, and only 2 came to the table yet again with the timing. So I think that the point I'm making is, what sort of safeguards have we got to actually make sure that consultation is accessible, and that we get the opportunity to get those full spectrums of views? And obviously, when the report might be written on this particular instance, they'll say the consultation was a roaring success. Look, a couple of people attended, we've ticked the box, and we're going to carry on regardless. So what attempts are we going to do to safeguard that the methods involved in getting people to the table are in fact valid and meaningful, so everybody can be heard, whichever side of the fence that they're on?
Yep, thank you, Councillor May. I think on your first point, is there a minimum threshold? There isn't, because we cannot compel people to respond to surveys or consultations that we put out there. We encourage, and we do that, as you quite rightly pointed out, through a number of different media. We have drop-in sessions, we use online forms, we do physical form completion, we have consultation sessions where people can have drop-ins. So we use a wide range, and Rhian Miller, Lee Wennon and the team do deploy those on a regular basis. Mr. Hugh Evans has also been active in terms of our approach to things like online petitions, so we can broaden people's electronic engagement. All of those methods are under active consideration, and where we get the opportunity to deploy other opportunities or activities, we will do so. But I don't think we've found a perfect way of doing it at the present time, but we will continue to try and improve. I think the point being is that I'm sure when the topic is controversial enough, people will turn out in droves, or people will respond in droves. But as we discussed at the last meeting, when we've got things like the corporate plan, which to those people not sitting in this chamber can seem like quite a dry and dusty topic, even though it's a very important document, it is hard to enthuse people to reply. But where we've had issues, and you'll have them in your ward, we've had them in everybody will have them in their ward, where there's something that really matters to residents are not shy in coming forward and giving you their views, and that's quite right. I think what we will continue to do with Rhian Miller and the team is just to make sure that we're deploying the best set of combination of measures for the type of consultation that we are rolling out.
Leader, Councillor Walton.
Thank you, Presiding Member. First of all, I'd like to point out, echoing what the leader said, that just because certain people shout loudest doesn't necessarily mean to say they've got the right argument. And I think further to that, I really would challenge this idea that the council, the officers, don't bother to respond, listen to, take into account people's opinions. But then, interestingly, I think that goes to the fact that the 2 councillors who've spoken, apart from Councillor Black, have basically just droned on about particular consultations in their wards and their perception of those consultations. Whereas I thought the item we're looking at is whether or not we think the consultation and engagement strategy put forward to us here is good enough. Now, I'm not saying that everything works, because it doesn't. There is always room for improvement on consultation, and I hope, sincerely hope, we are always genuinely trying to find out what our residents feel and to listen to them and to respond to them. But this document, I feel, goes a long way to doing that. It's a case of this is the basis on which we shall carry on doing consultations in the future.
Back, I'll allow you to come back.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just apologise for droning on? Oh, I thought she. Oh, in that case, that's fine.
You can apologise more generally.
I apologise more generally for it, but I was just going to make the point that actually it didn't relate to my ward at all. I was referring back to a scrutiny programme committee scrutiny, which specifically looked at the male cycle path. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, the recommendation is on page 87, and that's that the consultation and engagement strategy attached at Appendix A is adopted. So can I have a show of hands for, please? Okay, anybody against? Yeah. Okay, and any abstentions? Okay, that's carried. Oh. Thank you. Okay, then we move on to the next item, and that's councillors' questions. And the first question comes from Councillor Peter May.
I'll try not to drone on again.
Yeah.
So apologies for earlier, Councillor Walton. I didn't do it deliberately. Okay, a couple of technical questions on this one here. When we have potholes, yes, we've got potholes in Swansea, and I've noticed from other parts of the country as well. They are experiencing similar issues as well due to the inclement weather. Some as severe, some as not as severe. So the technical questions I've got, potholes will generally form dependent possibly on the condition of when a road is resurfaced and how long it takes to deteriorate. What depth, these are technical questions, I'll take written answers on them. What depth do we actually plane down to when we resurface a road now? Has that depth in fact decreased over the years, and how does it compare to the depth that other local authorities plane down to when they carry out an initial road resurface? Reason I'm making the point is that obviously the thinner the depth you plane down to, then the less likely or the longevity that the road surface will have before it starts to pothole. The second technical question I've got is on the method of pothole repair, and I believe that there might be a method called slow set used to repair our potholes in county. Can the cabinet member explain to me the methods of compaction that they use on these repairs? Do they actually just let cars compact it naturally, or is there a formal compaction process there to ensure that the actual repair takes to the road? And as I said, they might be technical questions, so I'm quite happy to receive a written answer on those, and thank the cabinet member in anticipation for his response.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I will definitely get a written answer on the first one, because that is something I don't have the detail of. On the second question, my understanding is that the teams are currently reviewing the way in which potholes are addressed. If you remember, we changed the process a few years ago to allow more potholes to be filled, and that meant doing if you like, a more temporary repair so that we could get it fixed to avoid the potential for damage to vehicles, on the basis that we then come back later on and do a more permanent repair. that had previously been a physical infill with the guys visiting on a flatbed lorry. I believe they're also using a compactor currently to make sure that the repair takes hold. But of course, it varies by the depth of the pothole, with the surface defect, all of those sorts of things. So there isn't a hard and fast rule that we can deploy with that. But one thing we are looking at, and I mentioned this at scrutiny, was about whether or not we could look at doing a more substantial repair in the initial phase for certain potholes, so therefore we get a more permanent repair done more quickly, albeit it does take longer to do it that way per pothole. So it's a balance between doing more and doing more intensive repairs. And just to update, the figure I had from January to last week, we've done 4,396 repairs. So really well done by the team. And of course, that's in addition to all of the patchwork and all of the other resurfacing stuff that we are doing. Just to add, obviously, I was grateful for the questioners pointing out the article in the Evening Post or the Wales Online, and I think Councillor May may be a bit disappointed he wasn't in the photo, because he does like to point to things as one of the few roads where he probably hasn't had a photo done. I was just going to say that they have since printed a follow-up article saying that the teams have been there and done an excellent job of repairing the road. And of course, it's not just a Swansea issue. We know that the UK government, even the UK government, have said that there is a significant pothole issue this year because of the specific weather conditions over a number of months, and Swansea's not immune to that. What we would really love, as I've said before, is a bit more money from the UK Treasury to actually help fix, and we'll do more if we get more money.
Leader. Councillor Rice.
Thank you to the Cabinet Member for the answer that's in C of the list of the streets that are due to be resurfaced or addressed this year. Can the leader, as it's in his portfolio as well, can he comment on the fact that the work plan of 2020 to 2025, which outlined all of the resurfacing work that's going to take place, during the election period, just after the election period, when we committed to the list of priorities for the council, and subsequently at the last budget meeting, much was said of additional monies going into addressing the scheme. So it's quite interesting to see what the leader believes. Are there more streets on the list than there were in the original plan? Are there the same number, or are there actually less proposed to be resurfaced this year?
Actually, I'm sure Councillor Rice will be pleased to know that yes, the 5 million is additional because we've had to agree with Mr. Ben Smith that money would be released from the insurance fund, so it is new money to do more in the programme. Councillor Rice will also know that there was no new capital this year from UK government, which meant that Welsh government were unable to provide new capital for roads. So all monies really for this work are having to be found locally. But in addition to that, I'm pleased to confirm, as Councillor Stevens did at the last meeting, a further 500,000 has been allocated on top of the 5 million. So the programme will be even bigger. And it is our intention at next Cabinet to bring forward a report to bring forward a further 500,000 to do more. This is to ensure that not only the roads that are listed there, but other ones as well. And of course, this isn't an exhaustive list because there are other roads where patching and other repairs will be done, which will deal with the surface issues on those roads. So this is not an exhaustive list of every area that will have attention and road repairs done. These are the major schemes, but even this list is not complete and more will be added. Okay.
Yes, I've got you down, Rebecca.
I had another question.
Sorry.
Just a quick follow-up question. Obviously, people are aware that potholes are all over the UK, but it's obviously one of the things that most of us as councillors get asked about all the time, and roads especially. So given the capital plan that the Cabinet agreed and then subsequently council agreed, do you think the general public would rather see over £10 million spent on the roads than, say, on city centre acquisition and Skyline?
Well, I thank Councillor Rice. I mean, this is the point. When he was part of the Lib Dem administration, it was an either-or choice, isn't it? You can either do one thing or you can do the other. We don't believe in that ideology. What we believe is you can do both. So we're investing in the roads, despite not having any money from UK government through Welsh government. And we're also, with the support of Welsh government, using money that we've been able to negotiate with them to support acquisitions in the city centre. I'm sure Councillor Rice at another meeting will be criticising why we're not doing more in the city centre, and he'll be wanting to spend the same money twice. And of course, the budget amendment that Councillor Rice fetched forward to the budget was actually aimed at taking money out, not just this year from the council tax revenues, but every year for the next 5 years. He was proposing to actually take over £5 million out, which is why Mr. Ben Smith could not support that amendment, and that's why we eventually voted it down, because you have to raise money in order to spend money. We, unlike Theresa May, don't have a magic money tree that we can run to. But look, it isn't a choice. We will invest in our roads. We will invest in our services. About £30 million net going into services this year. We have major schemes and a £1 billion regeneration programme, and we should be really proud of that, because by golly, didn't Swansea need the investment after 8 years of complete and utter drift under the administration that he was part of?
Councillor Black.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll just drift into this other question. In terms of the part B of the answer, the final sentence says a small number of potholes that do fail are generally too shallow to be repaired properly and are not safety defects. I think it's important, therefore, as part of the review, that we don't fill in those and we find other solutions to those particular ones. I'm just seeking some assurance that, because when a pothole does fail, that gives the impression that the work is not being done properly, when clearly it's down to the fact that it's not appropriate. So if it's not appropriate, we shouldn't be choosing that method to fill it. We should be finding other methods to fill it. So will the review be addressing that particular issue?
Yes, absolutely. I think, look, it's one of the considerations within the review. What we don't want to do is to leave something that's annoying, that people view as a pothole, but is actually a surface defect because it's a small defect. Residents will want it fixed. What we have done in the past is go out and fix that temporarily, even though it's likely to erode quite quickly. The question now is, should we use the resources in a slightly different way on the basis that there will be certain surface defects left until they become worse? It's a balance between how you respond to what the residents ask us to do.
Can I just ask a very quick second question? A number of road surfaces, there are some small parts of the road surface which are actually concrete as opposed to tarmac, and we don't appear to have a programme to address issues around that concrete where it has failed. So I'm just wondering if we could look at that as well.
Yes, absolutely. I think a number of concrete roads were resurfaced with tarmac over the top of them, but of course they are starting to degrade as well. But I will check that and get a written answer.
Councillor Holly.
Thank you, Presiding Member. This is a very topical question, isn't it? And the answer is, I think it's a very good answer, and I congratulate you. And it's not here, the Cabinet Member, in the answer. And I think everybody in this chamber and online, wherever ward they are, has this problem with potholes and what have you. Because, you know, it needs more money, as the leader has already said. So the simple question about that is, why did you take out money out of the revenue budget? Since 2017, the leader, along with yourselves, when you vote for the budget, have taken money out that before that was left in, and you've put it into the equalisation fund. And that equalisation fund is currently in the region, I think that the right figure is around about 14 million. But there will be some draws on it. There will be money going back into it. So to say there isn't a magic money tree, you've created a magic money tree. You created, oh yes, you have. You have taken money out of the revenue account for years, from 2017. You've put it into an equalisation fund. And the reason you put it in is to show that the capital that you've borrowed against, the repayments are not going to be that bad because you've got money that you can take. The consequence of that is the revenue account, which we use
to resurface roads, to resurface pavements, to actually look after schools like education, social services, has had that reduction. Now, you turn around and said, do we do more with more money? Well, if you would use that money, you could have done more, but you decided to put it in your back pocket and keep it for another day, which you have done. And that's your decision. That's the Labour budget. You have carried that budget from 2017. You've put money in that equalisation fund. The consequences are now coming home to roost. We see a possible problem right throughout every ward in this city. And you can't deny that, leader, because you were putting more money into it from another magic money tree. The fact is that that equalisation fund has been revenue money that prior to 2017 was left in and used in our services. That hasn't been the case now. You've put it to one side and you're using it to mask the amount of money that the borrowing is going to cost. I know you would agree that we should have more money from the Welsh Government. We should have more money from Westminster. But you should not start crying about lack of money when you are taking it out yourselves. And I think you should seriously consider what you do in the future, because it's all well and good having all these fancy projects and what have you. But if you can't get to them because the roads are in a hell of a mess, there's no point in having them. And by the way, this is a lovely building, isn't it? Who repaired it?
Councillor
not
Holly,
you.
keep to the subject.
Not you. Who rebuilt the leisure centre? Oh, not you.
Excuse me, we're on roads and potholes at the moment, Councillor Holly. I got a lot of people waiting to speak.
Presiding member, you're absolutely right.
Point of order.
But this is a pothole. Anyway,
Point of order. Point
I
of
finished.
order.
Go on.
Point of order. We are always on a rolling programme repairing this building, presiding member.
Yeah.
So I have to correct that statement because it's totally incorrect.
Anyway, I finished now. Thank you very much for your indulgence, presiding member.
Chair, there was no question in there, but I do have to respond to a couple of the points. I don't think there was a question there. I would point out a couple of key facts here, because it isn't about suddenly taking money out of revenue for some purpose of doing something over there that's some major project or whatever. No, it's not. When in 2016 we were negotiating with the Welsh and UK government, the UK government primarily, on the city deal, the terms of the city deal were we had to match the funding. So if the 4 local authorities hadn't put up money, we would not have received the £1.3 billion city deal. Now that city deal has stimulated the economy. That's why you see all the growth. That's why you see cranes across the city. That's why you see things now being built and being done. We could have taken the view of other authorities and said, no, we don't want things to happen in Swansea. Nothing will happen here. We're not prepared to put our investment in. It comes at a price. And I think that is one of the big differences between this Labour administration and the previous Lib Dem independent administration, was we were prepared to put some skin in the game and to get things done. In terms of the costs of borrowing, of course, anytime you have to borrow money to invest, and that's something we do all the time, you do so knowing the costs of that borrowing. Our borrowing was done, thanks to Mr. Smith, at 1.96%. And of course, Councillor Jeff Jones, the leader of the opposition, and a number of others were very, very keen that we didn't do that at the time. They were very, very critical of us taking borrowing. They would have waited until Liz Truss had done a fantastic budget and borrowing rates were now up at 5%. Cardiff Council, for instance, will have to go out and borrow for its programmes at that rate in due course. They're going to borrow at nearly 2.5 times what we borrowed. And of course, we still carry the debt taken out by the Liberal Democrat independent administration when they did invest in this building and other projects, but they did so by borrowing at a rate over 3 times what we borrowed and at a cost significant for the taxpayer of the city. So the borrowing that we're doing now is actually to repay the money they took out when they were in power. So, you know, it is. I wish people would learn the way of economics, because it would perhaps stop them getting themselves into trouble. So, Chair, I just wanted to correct the record there. I know Councillor Holly was irked by my statement, but I can't find a way of putting Councillor Rice in his place without referring to the fact that he was a Liberal Democrat cabinet member.
I have no problem at all with that at all. Because with your indulgence,
I got a lot of
remember,
people waiting to speak, Councillor Holly.
just to answer the leader, because he needs answering. The reality of it is, you know, he does a good speech and trying to defend his position, I will admit. And the city deal wasn't percolated, it wasn't predicated on the fact that we would borrow money. The agreement was that we would have this massive sum of money. We would find the match funding in some cases, and others. We could have used land, we could have used other issues as well, but we borrowed the money. That's fair enough. I'm not arguing. You borrowed the money, great, and you're spending it. But please do not try and hoodwink the public of this city to think that you did not take money out of our revenue account to pay for the future of that borrowing, because we have now seen the consequences in our roads of not investment. Thank you.
Can I just find, again, trying to be helpful on the economics here and the finance of council, Councillor Holly talks about taking money out of revenue. He does understand that the roads programme is a capital investment, not a revenue investment.
You can use revenue money to repair the roads.
This is a £5 million capital fund, which is going to become 6 million very shortly.
You can use revenue money to repair roads.
Okay, I'm going to draw this to a close because I got 4 or 5 people wishing to speak. Councillor Fitzgerald, you're next. I should put a hand down. I just got fed up of waiting. Councillor Fitzgerald. Councillor Fitzgerald, do you wish to speak? No.
No, Chair, and I'm sorry my hand is up. I thought it was down. It just doesn't seem to cooperate at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fogarty.
Thank you. I just wanted to put on record my thanks to the patch team who've recently been in West Cross Ward and done a fantastic job across a number of roads that were in need of repair. One of the bits of road that we would have liked them to have done was the junction between Mumbles Road and Fairwood Road, but I'm actually pleased to say we were advised they would not do that because it is one of the roads that has been brought forward for resurfacing in this current financial year. There is a typographical error, I believe, in the written response. So could I just ask the leader if he can confirm that that road should have been on the list? Thank you.
Yeah, there were 2 roads missing off the original list as published in the copy of the agenda. We will get that corrected and circulated to all members, but we will also publish online so all members can view it, the updated scheme, assuming Cabinet agree to the increase in funding, which will be proposed at next Cabinet.
Last speaker on this item is Councillor Walton.
Can I just check with the leader on one point of clarification? The investment that we're doing in this city, that money cannot be spent on anything other than that. So there's no way we could use any of that money to pay for roads. Is that true?
So Councillor Holly is partially correct in terms of the capital equalisation reserve, because as you've heard Mr. Smith say many times, the capital equalisation reserve is a revenue reserve used for purposes. That is why we're able to deploy the capital equalisation reserve in a number of ways. And of course, we replenish it on a regular basis so we can reuse it. And that is a very sophisticated, very neat mechanism to allow us to continue to invest. Our revenue investment has gone up significantly over many years, so it hasn't been a redirection of funds. But what Mr. Smith would also say, and he may want to comment if he's on the call, what we've also done is to have to make a commitment as to how we would cover the costs of repayment, and therefore this is setting aside repayments, as all councils do, to make sure you can afford the borrowing that you've taken out, and that is part of what we've done. But you are absolutely right, Councillor Walton. What if we didn't do, as I've said, in terms of match funding for things like the city deal, for other projects where Welsh Government are co-investing with us, or even UK Government are co-investing with us, we would lose all of the extra money. So that 1.3 billion wouldn't be in the region. The money that we've had from levelling up wouldn't come here. All of the investments that people are seeing where cranes are over the sky, the new development on the Kingsway, all of that wouldn't happen. And I know there are those that really hate the fact that we've actually delivered on what we said, that we actually delivered 105 of 106 commitments last time. People really don't like that because when they were in power, they were unable to do it.
Oh, I just want to congratulate the leader on good, prudent financial management.
To take a declaration from Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, presiding member. I think you'd be pleased to know there's not nothing to do with a potto, but just to verbally declare the interest in the public question and agenda number 8, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Move on to question 2, and that's Councillor Leslie Walton. No supplementaries. Okay. Question 3 is from Will Thomas. Councillor Thomas, you're online.
Yeah, no supplementaries, Chair. Sorry, I got my my daughter here,
Thank
childcare
you.
and juggling.
Okay. Question 4 is on Councillor Mike White. No supplementaries. Thank you. Question 5 is from Councillor Peter May.
Thank you, me again. Thank you very much to the Cabinet Member for the answer. Explore a little bit on his answer to B. Very encouraging to see the traineeship of 29 staff coming on board, which will hopefully improve matters from May onwards. The question I've got, it says it will reduce absences due to the traineeship. Was there a specific day of the week where these absences were more common than other days of the week?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Rice. It was normally on a Wednesday, which we were having a problem with, only because the trainees were going into college. But can I just also add, presiding member, I do apologise to the residents of Swansea with the missed collections, but I would also like to say these men and women operatives, yes, women operatives, are key workers in all, and they're out in all weathers, rain, shine, and even the pandemic, which some people do tend to forget. And going on, my response to question 5C, they do a damned good job and should be praised and given some credit.
Right.
Okay, just a quick follow-up question to the Cabinet Member as well. As you may well know, and I certainly work very closely with the now Chief Executive on establishing a lot of apprenticeship schemes across the authority, and I'm a full supporter of that. All I would say is that could we have a promise from the Cabinet Member that if there's any future groups of people coming in, that we look at the planning of staffing so that it doesn't over affect people who have their collections on Wednesdays. The Uplands is an extremely busy place for rubbish, as you can imagine, with the amount of HMOs. So I just ask for them to sort of give us a commitment for the future that we put a bit more planning in the future so that certain areas like ours wasn't hit so hard.
Councillor Rice, I will take that back to my officers and we'll discuss it. And I'm sure I'll be able to let you know in a later date. Thank you.
Okay, we move on to question 6, and it's from Councillor Sam Bennett.
Thank you, presiding member. I'd like to thank the Cabinet Member for their extensive response to my question. I've spoken to Councillor Hopkins this afternoon. She'll accept a written response to my supplementary question. I'm particularly concerned about the volume of discharge into the River Tower. It was over 2022, 1,818 incidents of sewage being discharged into the tower, which last 13,981 hours. So that's not really covered in the response here. So I'd like to understand how the council will be addressing this by working with Natural Resources Wales and Welsh Water, because within the answer there is a reference to the amount of rain and storms affecting discharge. But I mean, I'm not, I know we get a lot of rain in Swansea, but not 13,981 hours worth of rain. So if I could get a response to that, we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, Chair, on behalf of David Hopkins, I know he's agreed already to provide Councillor Bennett with a written response.
Councillor Rice.
Thank you. I just want to follow up from the question of Councillor Sam Bennett, and also to thank him for exposing the situation and the level of the problem. The question that I want to quickly ask about is this: will the leader, as he's taken this question, commit to writing to the cabinet member in the Welsh Parliament, in the Welsh Assembly, as you want to call it, Julie James, MS, and ask her what she is doing personally to try and remedy this issue and to take it on with Welsh Water, because I think she needs to pull her finger out.
I'll let Julie James answer that one directly, I'm sure, with a robust response. I'm more than happy to raise the matter with the Minister in the Welsh Government, but I think it's also important that we raise it with Natural Resources Wales, who I believe have responsibility in this area.
Councillor Black.
Thank you, Chair. I was wondering if the council is in correspondence with Welsh Water at all in relation to the sewage works on Fabian Way. Anybody who drives along that knows the smells that are coming from that, and there have been some attempts to upgrade that, which is made more difficult by the fact it's an underground facility. I'm just wondering if we are in discussion with them as to how the progress in terms of upgrading that facility is going.
I will get Councillor Black a written answer. I believe we have been, but I will check the facts and come back to him.
Okay, we move on to question 7, and it's from Councillor Will Thomas. Any supplementaries, Councillor Thomas?
No supplementaries from me.
Thank you. Okay, that's the end of the questions, and that's the end of the agenda. So thank you all for your attendance and safe journey home. That was spot on 30 minutes. What about 6? Yeah. I was watching, I did write the time, about 5:45. Yeah, yeah. It took 20 minutes.